Oh hey, you're back. Or maybe this is the first one of my tutorial videos you watched, I don't know. Maybe you learned something about the admin table. Again, I don't know. But what I do know is, I can teach you about these things. The sacred texts, as they're called, the logs. Some people think these things are super confusing to use and just can't figure out how you'd catch an imposter. Well, friend, that's why we're here today, and what I'm going to do for you is teach you how to read and translate and just make sense of the logs. It's really not as complex or confusing as I made that past sentence, but you know, you'll see. Alright, so first off, let me show you how these things work. Alright, I know what you're thinking. You're like, why is this guy standing here? I thought we were learning about the logs. What is this? Well, I'll tell you why. Check the map. Alright, you see where I'm standing? Right here? This, when you start at cafeteria, over here, is your choke point because everybody has to filter through this hallway, this little triangle choke point here, before they can go anywhere else on the map. And also, it's because this is where the sensors are. See this? See how that changed color? I just passed the southeast sensor. Alright, and then, oh, notice it didn't go off again. There's a cooldown on there, so you have to wait a while before it'll detect you going back. And we have the northeast sensor, which is right here. And again, if I walk back right away, doesn't count me. I have to wait a bit. Now it'll count me. Right? Okay, that's important for later, alright? And then the southwest sensor is right here. Okay, now, reason these sensors having a cooldown is important is because if you are reading the logs, right? If someone goes from the southeast and then goes up, right, past that sensor, you'll say Creamy Good has passed the southeast sensor and has passed the north sensor. Now, if they spend a bunch of time up here doing tasks and stuff, then by the time they walk back here, it'll say Creamy Good passed the north sensor, which would make sense on the logs. Because when we're reading the logs, we're looking for stuff that sounds impossible. Meaning, like, if it said that I passed the southeast sensor, passed the north sensor, but then somehow passed the southwest sensor, that wouldn't make sense unless if I had crossed back right away. But the chances of that are pretty low. So when you're reading the logs, you're looking for these impossible movements. Now, before I used the logs, I used to literally just stand here, and sometimes I still do. It's the same thing as reading the logs, except a little bit more reliable, and honestly, is a little bit safer in my opinion, because if they kill you here, you're killed out in the open. For instance, I would start the game and I see people pass here, and I'd have a piece of paper, and I write down every direction everybody goes. Like maybe I see someone go up and then down to the left. And if I saw him exit down to the left, on the logs it would say past the southwest sensor, but then later in the game I see him pass the north sensor coming down here, I know they had to vent and they're full of crap, so I'm running over to the button, right? Alright, so now let me show you this version, but from the logs perspective. Okay, here we are on the very opening round of a real game. That's important because that means we all come in from the bottom left-hand corner of the map, okay? So that means the very first sensor that someone should pass for the very first time is the southwest sensor. It would be impossible for them to go past another sensor first. So looking at this data, can you tell who the imposter is? I'll give you a second to just watch and see if you can figure it out. Okay, did you see it? It's already been there. Somebody's already done an impossible movement. Alright, now I'll show you. Up until this point, all movement has been normal, until, look at Demigod J. That is his very first time showing up on the log maps, and he's somehow passing the north sensor. Again, this being round 1, it is impossible for someone to show anything on the logs except the southwest sensor, if they're legit. Clearly, he vented up in the north and then walked back down. Unfortunately, I was already dead by the time I figured this out, but, you know, that's the way she goes. Maybe you can catch someone on the logs and report them before you die. Alright, now I'm gonna go over some more examples of imposter movement. So see how I just watched cyan go north and purple go north? That would, on the logs, read as they both passed the southeast sensor and have now passed the north sensor. If I were reading the logs, the next thing I would be expecting from them is seeing them pass the north sensor again. If they pass any other sensor before the north sensor, meaning southwest or southeast, we know that they have to be imposters because the only way they can do that is by venting. All right, I'll give you another example. So let's say I run over to the logs after leaving cafeteria. We all left cafeteria, so every single person's name that shows up there should first be crossing that southeast sensor. If you ever go to the logs after everyone's left cafeteria and you notice someone's first sensor movement is on the north or southwest, it has to be an imposter, because the only way you can do that is to vent elsewhere. Otherwise, you would always be passing that southeast sensor. Another thing to remember about the logs is the data is actually saved over multiple rounds. So as long as there isn't more movement that overwrites previous data, you can go back and check old movements. So if someone has an alibi, you can literally go to the logs and check to make sure that their movement checks out. Hopefully at this point, you're realizing that understanding the logs really isn't hard. What's hard is being able to read them in real time and find an imposter quickly enough before you're killed or the round ends. It's something that'll come with practice, but just keep doing it, or stand in that hallway and keep track of people that way. Both of those will help you when it comes to reading the logs. And when you're an imposter, make sure to use the vent network so that you don't show up on these logs doing impossible movements. If you vent to the north, but you never pass any sensors, make sure you vent back to where you started before you cross any of those sensors. You'll save yourself a lot of trouble. Hopefully now these logs, these sacred divine texts, are super easy for you to decipher, and you'll be catching imposters left and right. I was really excited to hear back from you guys telling me how many imposters you caught with my admin table video. I really hope this one does the same. I also want to say thank you guys. This is my first time passing 100 subscribers and we're almost past 200. I know it's not much, but to me that's a big deal. If you like the video, make sure to give it a like or a dislike, and just make sure to comment if it helped you or if you have any questions. We're also going to be throwing on a few of my songs up here pretty soon. More Among Us play, Escape from Tarkov, gaming, a lot of random mix mash of entertainment. So if you like what you saw, make sure to hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks again for checking this video out.